Alright, everyone. Welcome back to the Lock Up Shutdown podcast. My name's Monica. Joining me, as always, is my good friend Zach. With a very interesting Week 9 behind us, how are we feeling?
Feeling great. Half the NFL season behind us, so we'll see if the next 9 weeks are as entertaining as the last 9 weeks were, and I think if they are, then we'll be in for a good, entertaining show right before the NFL playoffs. So let's talk about everything that happened this week and maybe look into the next 9 weeks as well.
There's certainly a very entertaining show ahead of us before the playoffs, but there's also a very entertaining show ahead of us right here, right now. Today, we'll take a look at a distracted locker room in Las Vegas, discuss the OBJ situation as he sits on the waiver wire, and give our mid-season picks for the various league-wide awards, including the MVP. But first, as always, it's our biggest surprises from the week behind. Start us off, Zachary.
My biggest surprise has got to be the Sunday night game between the Tennessee Titans and the Los Angeles Rams, with Derrick Henry, the leading rusher in the NFL and maybe one of the best running backs of all time, out for the season. You would have thought the Titans would have struggled a lot more, but that wasn't the case, and they were able to hold the Rams in check better than anyone else has done all season, keep them to just 9 points until they get a late touchdown with 30 seconds left. And give the credit to the Titans defense, but also the running back core was able to replace Derrick Henry just a little bit and give the Rams their second loss of the season.
Well, it certainly helps to replace Derrick Henry with one of the greatest running backs of all time, albeit in an older form. My personal biggest surprise from Week 9 was the Broncos, who beat the Cowboys 30-16. Their defense completely dominated Dallas through 3 quarters, as they picked up a 19-0 lead by the 4th quarter. Tim Patrick, early on in the game, torched a now former DPOY candidate in Trevon Diggs for a massive 44-yard touchdown. Seems Trevon Diggs just can't quite keep up, I guess. The Cowboys' defense allowed 190 total rushing yards to Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams combined. An absolute powerhouse win for the Denver Broncos, and it's certainly something you don't expect out of a game like that.
Yeah, not anything I expected at all either, but I think the Cowboys have shown a few cracks in recent weeks, and I think all of those issues came to the forefront this week against the Broncos, and that's what resulted in that demolition job by the Broncos when they were up at one point 30-0 against the Cowboys.
Well, speaking of demolition jobs, it seems a demolition job from the inside is happening in the Las Vegas Raiders franchise. Do you think that the Raiders are scrambling to salvage the season after the controversies surrounding various now former members of the organization?
I don't think the Raiders are in scramble mode right now. I think that they've gotten rid of a few pieces that they needed to get rid of in John Gruden, Henry Ruggs, and their cornerback today, Damon Arnett. So I think with those 3 gone, hopefully they can just focus on football in Las Vegas this week and be able to get the ship righted once again. But yeah, I don't think they're in scramble mode right now. I think they're just a little bit distracted this week, but once they have a full week to prepare for their Week 10 matchup, I expect them to be back where we've known them to be this season.
Well, certainly they have a lot waiting for them after that bye week. Their schedule ahead of them for the next 6 weeks is the Chiefs, the Bengals, the Cowboys, the Washington football team, and the Chiefs and the Browns, all of which are going to be very tough games for any team in the league to win, let alone a team that's being torn apart by internal affairs. Again, like you said, they suffered a very tough loss to the Giants, 23-16. Carr only had a touchdown and 2 interceptions in that loss. Their receivers just weren't quite there at all, by any means. They just didn't seem to show up to the game because, frankly, one of them's no longer there anymore. Their head coach isn't there, their star receiver isn't there. the Raiders have a lot to make up for, and while I don't exactly think that they're going to be totally scrambling this season, I think that they have a lot of holes that they now need to fill because of these various situations surrounding them. And ultimately, that locker room is really going to need to keep a tight bond for the Raiders to want to do anything this season.
Yeah, the Raiders have obvious issues, but I think I said a little bit earlier, now that those issues are hopefully behind them, they can grow together and say that they made it through all of this together and compete for a divisional championship that right now they have a chance to win if they can solve the issues that they've been having in the recent weeks.
It's certainly good luck to them. Let's move on to our rookie spotlight, a weekly tradition here. But this week we're not spotlighting any rookies in particular because we're at the halfway point in the season. It's time to start making discussions about the Offensive Rookie of the Year and Defensive Rookie of the Year. Zach, why don't you start us off with your current Offensive Rookie of the Year candidate? I think we'll agree on this one.
My current rookie candidate might actually catch you by surprise.
Really?
This one's going to be Rashawn Slater, the offensive tackle we talked about just a little bit ago from the Los Angeles Chargers.
He's very talented, that's for sure.
I know we talked about Tristan Wirfs last year, but I think Rashawn Slater has been even better than that. And how about this? He's given up 2 quarterback pressures in the last 3 weeks. So any player that does that, whether rookie or non-rookie, deserves to be notable mention, and Rashawn Slater has done that in the past 3 weeks as well as all season. So that is why he will be my rookie of the year, as much as it may be a surprise to some of these people listening.
It's certainly not very often you see an offensive lineman as a candidate. I don't really think that Rashawn Slater is even the best offensive lineman in terms of rookies in the league. Creed Humphrey has had an absolutely amazing season, but personally, my Offensive Rookie of the Year is probably what everyone thinks the Offensive Rookie of the Year is, in an absolute legendary rookie out of LSU. It's Ja'Marr Chase of the Cincinnati Bengals. This man is absolutely incredible. He's 22nd in receptions of the league, which, is pretty... It's not great, it's not good, it's not bad, but it's not the greatest in the world. Until you consider the fact that he is 3rd in receiving yards, 4th in receiving touchdowns, is on pace for a nearly 1,500-yard season. Ja'Marr Chase looks absolutely incredible. You heard everyone calling for him to be a bust because he couldn't see the NFL ball because it doesn't have the lines on it like the NCAA ball. What a bunch of malarkey. This guy is an incredible talent. We have seen nothing like this since, Megatron, since Randy Moss. We might not have seen a talent like this ever, for all I know. Ja'Marr Chase is absolutely incredible. I don't think there's any doubt that he's going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year this year.
Yeah, he'll probably end up winning Rookie of the Year, but I just gotta give credit to Rashawn Slater. Give the offensive lineman some sort of publicity, but you're right, the Rookie of the Year does go to those skill positions almost year in, year out, and he is the best skill position player in the NFL rookie class this season. So credit to Ja'Marr Chase and the year he's put on.
I absolutely believe that Rashawn Slater does deserve some recognition. Offensive linemen, always completely underrated. They make the team that it is. Let's talk about the defense, though. I think I'm going to start us off and say that Micah Parsons is going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. Again, no shock at all here. With Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah getting himself injured earlier in the season, and Patrick Surtain expected to miss multiple weeks with injury, as well as Odafe Oweh struggling the last few games. I don't think there's any doubt that Micah Parsons is a front runner and is going to continue to be the front runner as long as he stays healthy throughout this season. I wanted to pick Patrick Surtain here, but again, he got injured. What can I do? He's second in rookies in terms of sacks with 5 sacks. He's second in rookies in terms of total tackles on the season. Again, everyone criticized him for not being able to cover, but he seems to be able to play his position the way he needs to play his position. Micah Parsons is undeniably a Defensive Rookie of the Year candidate, and I believe he's going to be the winner.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you on this one. I'm going to pick Micah Parsons as well. Talked about the Cowboys having a bad week, but I'll say Micah Parsons is about the only bright spot for the Cowboys out there. He had 2.5 sacks against Teddy Bridgewater, and that's good no matter what you're doing. But when you say he had 2.5 sacks and he only blitzed 9 times the entire game and dropped back in coverage the other times, that makes it even more impressive that he's getting a sack almost 1 out of every 3 plays he rushes the quarterback. And credit to him in the career he's having, and he's a linebacker that can do it all, and we'd be lucky for anyone in the NFL to reach this level at any point in their career, and for him to do it in just 9 games has been incredible to watch, and he's well on his way to a well-earned Rookie of the Year.
He's certainly not the best linebacker I've ever seen, but he is just a rookie. We'll have to see how he turns out to be. Let's talk about a different defense in the league. Do you think that the Dolphins defense is overlooked as one of the better defenses in the league after their great outing against Houston?
I'm not convinced about anything in Miami, and that includes their defense. They had a good outing against the Texans. Given that, they only gave up 9 points this weekend, but if you look at the last couple games, they gave up 26 to the Bills, 30 points to the Falcons. They gave up 23 points to the Jags, 45 points to the Buccaneers. So I'm not convinced about the Dolphins defense just yet. They did have a good outing, but when you play Tyrod Taylor and the Houston Texans, I'm not going to give you too much credit for giving up 9 points to them. So we'll see if they can keep it up, but I'm not sold on anything at all in Miami right now involving football.
I'm certainly very high on Tyrod Taylor in terms of his talent, and so I was a little bit surprised to see him throw no touchdowns and 3 interceptions against this very weak Dolphins defense, who is 30th in the league in passing yards allowed and 17th in the league in rushing yards allowed. But regardless, I think that the Dolphins defense have great pieces in the right places. However, they're very incomplete as a whole. But on the other hand, it's very hard to stop an offense when they're always on the field. Ultimately, the Dolphins offense can't get anything done, the Dolphins defense can't get anything done, and vice versa, and so on and so forth, whatever. Their defense is okay, but I'm not going to say that it's one of the better defenses in the league. Come on now.
Yeah, you make a good point that bad offense does lead to bad defense, and the Dolphins offense has put the 11 defenders in a bad situation a time or two, but on a general consensus, I think the defense has just as much of a reason as to why they're 2-7 as the offense does.
You can't spell Dolphins without the D or the O, but it's clear that it's looking like we should just start calling them the Fins from now on. It's time to move on to the quarterly report. We are midway through the season. We have had a very, very, very long season of recording these podcast episodes, but we're finally halfway through it. We've got halfway to go. Whoa, we're halfway there. Whoa, living on a prayer. You get the point. It's time for the quarterly report. Zach, why don't you start us off with your personal best take and my worst take from the first half of this season?
My favorite take has got to be when we were talking about the rookie rankings involving the quarterbacks, and I said Mac Jones is going to be a high-level quarterback and one of the best quarterbacks in this rookie class, and I think he's done exactly that and may be the best quarterback in the rookie class right now.
Really?
top 10 in the NFL in completion percentage right now, as well as having 10 touchdowns through the 9 weeks and has over 2,100 yards on the season. So, Mac Jones, you've lived up to the expectations I had for you, and I want to thank him for proving me right so far halfway through his rookie career.
I'm not so sure on Mac Jones just yet. You know, he's still a rookie, and he might still collapse.
You not being sure is a lot of improvement on you saying he's going to be the worst quarterback in the draft class.
I still have no confidence at all whatsoever in terms of Mac Jones. And I'm going to need to see a lot more before I'm starting to say that Mac Jones is going to be the next big thing for the Patriots. That's all I'm going to say. Let's talk about my best. Oh.
One more thing is saying that the quarterback he's trying to replace, Tom Brady, Mac Jones does have a higher completion percentage than Tom Brady does right now this season.
Well, we'll just have to see.
What's your take this time?
Let's talk about my personal best take, which was in week 3, again during our rookie spotlight segment, where I hyped up Ravens wide receiver Rashad Bateman. Every catch so far this year of his has resulted in a first down. He looks absolutely incredible so far. It's actually interesting to watch a Ravens game, though I still have been refusing to do so because every time I do, I feel like I'm going to have a heart attack. It's going to overtime after overtime. You get the point. Rashad Bateman has looked incredible. He's put up pretty solid stats in his first 3 games in the league. What more can I say about Rashad Bateman other than the fact that he's huge, he's a great target for Lamar. There's nothing that the Ravens offense has needed more than Rashad Bateman.
Yeah, that's the one downside to the Ravens every single year. They've figured out their quarterback situation. They have the running back situation solved through the quarterback situation, and they always have the solid defense. So now they have a wide receiver in Rashad Bateman. Give you credit that you pointed him out before. A lot of people may have known who he was, and he has proven you right so far, but he is just waiting on that first touchdown so far.
Absolutely. Why don't you tell me about my worst take from the season, Zach?
Yep, your take about Rashad Bateman was spot on. Your take about the Buffalo Bills, though, was not great. You thought the Bills were going to be one of the best teams in the league after they beat the Chiefs. And I'll tell you what, since they beat the Chiefs, they have gone 1-2 with that one win coming against the lowly Dolphins that we just finished talking about. So Buffalo Bills just lost the Jacksonville Jaguars, which I thought was unthinkable, and I'll tell you that Josh Allen destroyed the Bills, and it's not the Josh Allen you're thinking of. Josh Allen, the defensive end for the Jacksonville Jaguars, had a sack, forced fumble, and an interception against the quarterback of the Bills, Josh Allen.
Well,
but back to the Bills, they have not been good, and I'm not saying they won't win their division, but there's not a huge chance that they may not win their division, as there is Mac Jones and the New England Patriots just a half game behind the Bills in the divisional race right now.
Well, the Jags game was certainly a nice one, as Josh Allen and the Bills lost 6-9 to Josh Allen and the Jaguars. But I'd say that was pretty much a fluke game. That was a week 1 type game. I don't think the Bills brought their A game to that game. It was very clear that that was the case. They're 5-3 on the season. They're still first in the AFC East, and I can totally see them bouncing back from a pathetic loss against one of the worst teams in the league. As next week they have the other worst team in the league in the New York Jets. The week after that, Carson Wentz and the Colts. And the week after that, a decimated Saints team. After that, it's the Patriots, Bucks, Panthers, Patriots again, Falcons, and Jets again. I don't see them losing a single one of these games except for the one against the Buccaneers. The Bills are still one of the best teams in the league, and I don't think any amount of losing to the Jags in a fluke game should distract anybody from that. Let's talk about your worst take, though. In week 2, just after the Texans had won the first game of the season against that said Jaguars team, you said this: "We underestimated the Houston Texans." No, Zach. No, we did not. We talked about Tyrod Taylor earlier, who was 0-3 in his loss to the Dolphins. Texans had 8 penalties, and their lead rusher had 28 yards. The Texans are not good. I hate to admit it, because I really want Tyrod Taylor to succeed in this league. But the Houston Texans just are not good. There's a reason Deshaun Watson wanted out, and there's a reason he's still trying to get out. Because the Texans are just not good. I don't think there was any amount of underestimation that happened, and they still haven't won a game since.
Yeah, it's not been great on my end for saying that, and the Houston Texans are taking the Los Angeles Lakers approach, if you're familiar with what's going on in the NBA right now. Getting some name power, but the players may not be as effective as they were as they are growing older, as Tyrod Taylor is now 32, and you look at their running back core of Phillip Lindsay, got David Johnson back there, who would be a great pairing, as well as Rex Burkhead. So those guys used to be great running backs, but not anymore, and that's probably a good reason why they're on the Houston Texans and not on the Broncos, Cardinals, or the Patriots anymore. So you got me there, and Houston Texans have let me down, and I was caught out in the week 1 bias of making bold assumptions off of one game that wouldn't matter at all if it wasn't week 1.
This team certainly would have been amazing back in 2017, but certainly not here in 2021 as these players have gotten older. There's one player who's getting a bit older, but is still at a very consistent pace. His name is Odell Beckham Jr., who has just been recently waived by the Cleveland Browns. Today he became available. Tomorrow he will probably either get signed by the time his waiver expires, or simply his waiver will expire and he'll be free to go to any given team in the league that he wants to. We'll just have to see what happens with Odell, and by the time this is uploaded, he will most certainly be a Baltimore Raven. On another team. Do we think that Odell Beckham Jr. is a consistent locker room issue, or does he just keep ending up in the wrong situations? You start us off, Zach.
I think that it is not a surprise that issues follow Odell Beckham, and I think Odell Beckham is typically the catalyst behind these issues. He's, in my opinion, been brought into pretty good situations. He was supposed to be the superstar for the New York Giants, where he brings New York back to prominence and ends up with all these off the field deals and is the star of New York, and he blew that. And then he comes to Cleveland and you try and pair him up with his best friend Jarvis Landry and give him a good quarterback in Baker Mayfield, who people think are gonna become Super Bowl contenders, and now we see where they are now at just above 500, and Odell Beckham has been waived because him and Odell Beckham Sr. have caused too many issues together, and I think Odell Beckham is turning into another Cam, and where the issues follow them and they wonder why, but I think the Odell Beckham is the number one reason why, and that it's not the other players around him that are causing the issues.
I personally think that the Not the Browns. The Browns are always in the wrong situation. But I think that Odell Beckham just keeps ending up in the wrong situations. Let's look at how the Browns performed without Odell in their game against the Bengals. Baker had just 218 yards and 2 touchdowns. And apart from Donovan Peoples-Jones, who had a 60-yard touchdown and finished with 84 yards, I believe, the Browns receivers all had under 30 yards, and if it weren't for that 60-yard touchdown, all would have had under 30 yards in that game. Personally, if Antonio Brown was able to be tamed, of all people, there is no such thing as locker room issues in the NFL. I don't think we're ever going to have a Kyrie in Boston situation when it comes to the NFL. If Antonio Brown, of all people, has been tamed and is now an amazing player for the Bucs, I think Odell Beckham's going to find himself in the right situation at the right time, and I think he's going to succeed again someday, eventually.
I hope he succeeds, but it's been multiple different teams now, and I'm not ruling him out yet because Antonio Brown was able to flip his career around, and he seemed like the most lost cause of a lost cause there ever was. So we'll see what team Odell ends up on, and I'm sure he'll end up going to a contender and see which team he tries to make a playoff run with later on this season.
Absolutely. Let's talk about players who have found their situations and are absolutely dominating in those situations. It's the moment you've been waiting for. It's our picks for this season's MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, as we are now halfway through the season. Let's start off with our MVPs. Zach, why don't you start us off?
I'll tell you what, this one may not come as too much of a surprise to anyone that's watched NFL football in the last 20 years, and I'll say that my MVP is Tom Brady.
Whoa.
Say year after year that his career is going to come to a halt at some point, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon, as he's second in the NFL with 2,600 passing yards. He leads the NFL in touchdowns. He's second in the league in quarterback rating. So no matter what category you want to look at, he's going to be at the top in every category. Top 10 in fewest interceptions, top 10 in completion percentage. So Tom Brady, 44 years old, but still the most valuable player in the NFL.
It is always funny seeing the Battlefield 2042 advertisement that has Tom Brady winning the MVP in 2042. Tom Brady is certainly the best player of all time, and I wouldn't be too terribly surprised if he won MVP this year. I just wasn't exactly expecting it, to be honest. This season, I have to say, it might just be Kyler Murray, and I know that kind of interferes with my Cardinals Super Bowl prediction, because the MVP doesn't exactly make it there very often, let alone win it. This all depends, however, on whether or not he ends up being healthy next week, because if he misses more than a week this season, I don't think there's any doubt that somebody else is going to be the most valuable player. But if he's healthy, the Cardinals will most definitely end up being the number one team in the NFC. I mean, they're absolutely dominant. Even without Kyler Murray, they looked amazing. He's on pace for his best passing season in just about every category except for interceptions. Kyler Murray looks absolutely incredible this season. If you watch the Cardinals, that man is the one leading the charge, and ultimately you have to be on a winning team if you want to win MVP.
Yeah, he's been great, and his improvement is one of the reasons why the Cardinals have improved so much. I know their roster hasn't changed tremendously, but I think the individual improvements around their team is a big reason why they're a Super Bowl contender this year, and Kyler Murray does deserve the credits that he's getting for that, but I don't think he'll be able to edge out Tom Brady just yet in that MVP race, which is crazy to say as we go into the 2022 Super Bowl and playoffs.
Absolutely. And the MVP is usually an offensive player of the award. I don't think we've ever had a defensive player win MVP, but if I'm mistaken, please correct me. But it's mostly an offensive player award. Some people even consider just calling it the offensive player of the year, but better. Let's talk about the other side of the ball, though. It's the Defensive Player of the Year award, and I think I'll start us off and say that the Defensive Player of the Year this year is going to be TJ Watt. He got robbed a bit last season, when Aaron Donald won his, I believe, third Defensive Player of the Year in his career, which is absolutely insane considering that's basically half of his career that he's won Defensive Player of the Year. TJ Watt has looked absolutely amazing. He's just behind Myles Garrett in sacks and total tackles. I don't know if that's changed over the course of the night, but I don't think he's gotten 2 more sacks and like 10 extra tackles. But regardless, he has 3 forced fumbles and 2 recoveries. And considering that Ben Roethlisberger is on the field as a Steelers quarterback, TJ Watt is basically carrying the Steelers at this point.
Yeah, TJ Watt seemed to know exactly what I was going to say, because TJ Watt is my pick for Defensive Player of the Year as well. The Steelers aren't the Steelers that we've come to know offensively, yet they're still having success, and I think a big reason for that is TJ Watt, who is able to keep any defense and any team competitive around the league, and the Steelers are thankful for him to everything he's done for them, and was for him to only play 7 games and still be tied for 4th in forced fumbles while top 5 in sacks shows just how effective he's been when he's on the field, and wouldn't want to come up against the Steelers right now as they've just won 3-4 straight games now. So Steelers are looking to make a run after starting the season 1-3. They're now 5-3 and have another winnable game against the 0-8 Lions to move themselves up to 6-3. So everyone better watch out for the Pittsburgh Steelers and their Defensive Player of the Year in TJ Watt.
I'm kind of surprised that we both went for TJ Watt rather than one of us going for the current front runner in Myles Garrett. I guess both of us see the talent in the Pittsburgh Steelers linebacker. I think it's time to wrap things up and move things on to the lightning fast picks for Week 10. I don't believe we're on week... Are we on Week 10?
We are on Week 10.
We are on Week 10. I loaded up the wrong schedule. That would have been a...
Get to watch your Baltimore Ravens in prime time against the Miami Dolphins Thursday Night Football this week. If they want to watch that, I don't think they'll give you a heart attack in that one, and I'll start us off with saying that the Baltimore Ravens will come out victorious against the Miami Dolphins.
I'm going to have to agree with you there. I think it's going to be the Baltimore Ravens. Well, I can't exactly say that the Baltimore Ravens aren't going to give me a heart attack considering what we did to the Colts. We might just actually let the Dolphins almost win against us. Let's move on to Atlanta and the Dallas Cowboys. I think this one's pretty easiest, even though easiest? What is this, Latin? Even though the Cowboys just came off of a very tough loss against Denver, I don't think there's any way that they're going to lose to Atlanta of all teams. Give me Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I talked about Cowboys having a few cracks, but I think now that those issues came to the forefront, they are going to be solved by Mike McCarthy and his coaching staff, and the Cowboys will rebound with a win against the Falcons.
Next up, we've got the Saints and the Titans. Start us off with this one, Zach.
I would have said the New Orleans Saints before this week, but after the Titans' dominant performance against the Los Angeles Rams and showing that they can still score the ball with or without Derrick Henry, I'm going to take the Tennessee Titans.
I think I might have to disagree with you on that one. The Saints have a very good pass defense, and I think Marshawn Lattimore is going to make a quick work of the familiar face in Julio Jones, or simply make quick work of A.J. Brown. Give me the Saints. Next up, we've got the Jags and the Colts.
This one's not going to be too much fun to watch, and although the Jags have won 2 of their last 3 games, I'm going to say the Colts will come out victorious in this one against a Jags team that's still looking to find their identity.
I absolutely agree with you. Give me Carson Wentz and the Colts over the Jags. Next up, we got the Browns and the Patriots. Give me the Browns for this one.
Yeah, 10 years ago, we would have been laughed at for saying the Browns would beat the Patriots, but times have changed in the NFL, and I think the Browns are the favorites over the Patriots.
Next up, we've got a pretty easy choice. It's the Bills and the New York Jets. I think I said this earlier, but give me the Bills.
Yep, the Bills playing the Jets without their starting quarterback, and Bills are going to win that one pretty easily.
Next up, we've got the Lions against the Steelers. Why don't you start us off, Zach?
Just talked about this game with TJ Watt, and I'll say it again that the Pittsburgh Steelers aren't going to be the 1-8 as the Detroit Lions will now go to 0-9 on the season.
You know, I was really thinking about picking the Lions until the Steelers made quick work of the Bears this week. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be another game that comes down to the refs, but give me the Steelers. Next up, we've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Tom Brady versus Washington Football Team and Taylor Heineke. It's a rematch of last year's wild card game. Give me the Bucs, and you're biased if you say otherwise.
Yeah, this one's not going to be as close as it was in the playoffs, unfortunately, and Tom Brady will get the better of Taylor Heineke and win this one.
Next up, we've got the Carolina Panthers and the Arizona Cardinals. I'm going to have to give this one to the Cardinals, but if Kyler Murray is still hurt, this might be a game between Sam Darnold and Colt McCoy of all things.
Yep, even with Colt McCoy, I'm still taking the Arizona Cardinals due to the fact that Sam Darnold is the old Sam Darnold that we used to know on the New York Jets, and the Cardinals will once again win this game.
The Adam Gase curse is not real. You've heard it here first, folks. Next up, we've got the Vikings and the Chargers. A pretty evenly matched game. What do you got for us, Zach?
2 evenly matched teams, and I'm going to go with a surprise on this one and say the Minnesota Vikings will go into Los Angeles and win the matchup against the Chargers. I think Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson will combine to torch this Chargers team.
The Chargers have a pretty good defense, and somehow I doubt that. I was considering the Vikings for this one because it's such an even match, but give me the Chargers and Justin Herbert to bounce back after some tough last few games. Next up, we've got the Eagles and the Broncos.
I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles on this one. The Broncos looked amazing against the Cowboys, which is weird for me to pick the Eagles after that, but I think the Broncos was more to do with how bad the Cowboys were that week, and Eagles have looked promising the last few weeks, so I'll go with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Not next up at all. I haven't given a pick at all. Give me the Eagles, absolutely, I agree with you. Next up, we have the Seahawks and the Green Bay Packers. Now this could either be between Geno Smith and Jordan Love, or maybe we'll see Russell Wilson come back, and maybe we'll see Aaron Rodgers come back. Regardless, give me the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, but a lot of unknowns in both quarterback rooms heading into this matchup, but regardless of that, I think the Green Bay Packers have too much talent and won't be stopped against the Seahawks.
Next up, we've got a Sunday Night Football AFC West matchup. It's the Kansas City Chiefs and the Las Vegas Raiders. I think I'm going to have to go for the Raiders on this one.
Wow. I'm going to pick the opposite of you and say the Kansas City Chiefs are going to win this one. It may have been able to give their defense a little momentum after looking like the worst defense in the league after they only gave up 7 points to the Green Bay Packers, although it was Jordan Love at quarterback. The defense looked promising, and I think they'll be able to capitalize on the issues the Raiders are facing right now.
Darren Waller is about to make Daniel Sorensen look absolutely silly. Last up, we've got the Monday night matchup between the Rams and the 49ers. Rams coming off of a very tough loss against the Titans on Sunday Night Football and going right back into another primetime game the week after. Give me Matthew Stafford and the Rams regardless.
Yeah, and I'll go with the Rams too on this one. They've gotten a rebound after the last week's loss against the Titans, and they'll play the good game against 49ers and come away with the win in that one.
All right. I think that's the end of the time that we have. I know your phone is currently dying right now under the stress of Discord. So I think we'll just get this one done quickly. How are we feeling about this, what is it, 10th episode, week 10? Is that where we're on right now?
This is week 10, so head into the week 1 of the second half. So got a little halftime break this week, and now we start the third quarter of the season.
Absolutely. It'll be certainly nice to see what this channel does, this podcast does as we go further into the season. But until then, I think it's time for us to lock up and shut down.